Good day, class. Today we're going to go over Unit 4, SAS 1, using scatter parts in reports. Now I find this unit interesting. You're going to find it familiar because our last unit, which was univariate data or one unit data, gave us the ability to go ahead and create box plots, histograms, things with frequency. But the interesting part, it only had one unit data. And most of your mathematical career from algebra on out actually had to do mostly with two variable data with this x and y plot. So when you see a scatter plot's actually very familiar to you just because you've had experience with it and have been taught several concepts to do with it. Now let's go ahead and kind of tell you what is it that we're expecting for you to learn in this unit or even in this assignment. It's going to be important for your learning objective for you to be able to identify the variables of interest in a bivariate situation. And when I say bivariate, just two variable situations, so in this case x and y. And you're going to also be able to analyze the form, direction, and strength of scatter plots. Now in regards to form, direction, and strength, you've had some experience with this, especially in the regards to the direction aspect of it. But as far as the form and the strength, that's two new concepts that are important to know but haven't been exposed to. Now let's talk about some definitions. First, form is also known as shape. So when you look at a scatter plot, typically scatter plots could be broken up into two different types of shapes: linear and curvilinear. The second type of shape, well, not shape, but the second definition is direction. Direction, this is you're very familiar in identifying either is a scatter plot positive or negative. Now the probably the most confusing one, but it's very important to know, is the relative strength of a scatter plot. Now what is a perfect relationship? When two variables are exactly linear. So when you see the scatter plot and it looks exactly like a line, then the coefficient, or what they call the relative strength, is either 1 or -1. If it's positive, it's identified as a 1. If it's negative, it's identified as a -1. And it's said to be perfectly linear. It's not always the case. Actually, most of the time with scatter plots, you have different various degrees of what their strength is. Now, in this whole example, there's also a condition that happens. Sometimes there is no relationship, and where the relative strength is 0. That means that you can't tell what is going on with the scatter plot. Now, what we're going to do with the next couple of slides, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a slide, and then I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I'm going to want to know the form, direction, and relative strengths of each of these scatter plots. So let me go ahead and show you the first one, and then okay, here's the first scatter plot. I want you to go ahead and tell me what is the form, direction, and relative strength of the scatter plot. What I'll do is I'll pause the video and call on somebody randomly. So let me go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, here's our second scatter plot. Same 3 questions. I want to know what is the form, the direction, and relative strength. Let me go ahead and pause the video again and call somebody randomly. So let me pause the video now. Here's the next scatter plot. Same thing. I'm going to want to know form, direction, and strength. Let me go ahead and pause the video and call on somebody randomly. In this one we have 4. So let me go ahead and have you all look at that for a couple of seconds, and then let me go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll call on somebody randomly as well. And here is our last scatter plot that I'm going to call on you for. I want you to go ahead and same thing. I want to know form, direction, and strength. So let me go ahead and pause the video and call on somebody randomly. This last slide, I wanted to show it to you because the hardest concept that I find that students have a difficult understanding, it has to do with the fact of what is the relative strength. Now if you look at the A, you see how they're almost perfectly aligned. Well, not perfectly, but I imagine they rounded up, but it gives you an idea that the relative strength is +1. Now look at the next one, C. You see how C is a little bit more scattered apart? It's scattered apart because, and they're saying the relative strength is really 0.75, which is, in a way, it's like thinking about it, it's only 75%, very close to each other. And now look at the next one, which is no correlation. Can't tell what's going on. Now this is interesting. Look at B. B, the correlation, you see how it's very similar to A, but just in the opposite direction, the negative direction. It's really saying that its relative strength is -1. Now, when you look at the moderate negative correlation, you see this one with the scatter plot being a little bit further apart. The relative strength is -0.6. And lastly, I wanted to show you like a curved linear relationship because those are not shown to you very often. Okay, great class. Let's go ahead and start working on this assignment. And if you have any questions, please see me in the back.